Goals, content, and sequencing, and format and presentation, presented by Emily Ortega. Okay, goals in curriculum design. Okay, so in the curriculum designs, the goals refers to general aims of a course. The text states that the goals are broad and focus in a long-term learning outcomes rather than specific details. This means that they are not very detailed, but they give an overall direction for the course. For example, a goal might be to develop the students' communication skills or help them to use the language more effectively in like real situations. So the text also like mentions that the goals help the teachers to understand the purpose of the course and guide their planning. In other words, there are like a starting point that influence everything else. So even though that they are general, they are very important because they define what the course is trying to achieve. Okay, curriculum content. So, according what I read about the text, the content refers to what is actually taught in the course. The text mentioned that this includes knowledge, skills, and language items such as vocabulary, grammar, and communicative functions. It also explains that the content should not be selected randomly but carefully chosen so it matches the goals of the course. Another important point is that the content should be relevant and useful for learners, meaning it should help them in real life situations. The text also suggests that the content can include different types of learnings, not only language rules, but also skills like speaking or listening. So basically the content is everything that the students are expected to learn during the course. Sequences. So basically, the text that I read explains that the sequence is very important because it directly affects how the students learn. So it mentions that the content is usually organized from a simple to more complex. So the learners can build their understanding step by step. This gradual progressing helps the students to feel more confident and makes learning easier. The text also suggests that if the content is not sequenced properly, the students may feel confused or overwhelmed. For example, learning something too difficult or too early can create problems. So, a good sequence helps to create a logical flow and supports effective learning. Factors in sequences. So, basically, one of the main factors is difficulty, which means that is easier content is usually taught before the more difficult material. Another factor in is the frequency, is referring how often certain language items are used in real life. So the this text also mention and highlights the usefulness, meaning that more useful content may be introduced early, and also, in another hand, the needs are very important because the course should respond to what students actually need to learn. So the learning content also plays a role since the different situations may require different approaches. So sequencing is based on a combination of factors, not just one. Format and presentation. So the format in presentation, it refers to how the content is organized and delivered to the learners. So basically, this includes the materials used, the type of activities, and the way information is presented in the course. For example, it can involve the textbooks, the exercise, the visual layouts, or the digital material. The also something that is mentioned is that a good format can make the content clearer and easier to understand. Eh, Also, the presentation affects how the students interact with the material and how they engage they feel. So it's not only about what is taught, but also how it is shown to students. A well organized format can make learning more effective and interesting. Connections to decisions. So something that I wrote in this text is that the format of the presentation reflects earlier decisions made in a curriculum designs. This means that they are based on the goals, the selected content, and the way the content is sequenced. So the next mentions that all these elements are connected and should work together. So when they are aligned, the course becomes more coherent and easier to the students to follow. So in the other hand, if these elements are not connected, the course may seem disorganized and or very confusing. So the format and the presentation are not independent decisions, but the results of previous planning. They show how well the curriculum has been designed from the beginning. Thank you for your attention.